sharing with you in this video the real thing that's stopping you from creating your dreams and goals. And ultimately speaking, this is going to be stuff that nobody wants to tell you. And so the first thing that I want to share with you in this video that's possibly making this happen is attachment to your lower desires. So when I say lower desires, what am I talking about? I'm talking about the more primal side of us that often people want to reject. The part of us that's about, food and water and this need to exchange, have money so that we can have our stuff, our survival needs met. So in this sort of survival state, I think that, of course, there can't be anything wrong with this. It's an innate part of us to need to survive and want to survive, as a matter of fact. But ultimately speaking, I think that there's nothing wrong with any quote unquote lower desire that you might want. And so when I say lower desire, the reason why I choose the word lower is ultimately to also go full circle and to explain the fact that there's absolutely nothing wrong with any quote unquote lower desire. Because a really good mentor of mine once taught me that the only way out of something is through something. And so you can't get out of any negative situation in your life or something that you perceive as negative by resisting it or by trying to bypass it or run away from it. Now, with that being the case, I do believe that the art of avoidance, for example, is a powerful skill set. You don't always need to pay attention to things that don't matter to you, that don't serve you, that don't help you to improve, to become the person that you want to be in your life. That's a permission slip you have from me, if you want to hear it from somebody else, to say that you have no need to pay any attention to something that doesn't increase your state or resonate for you or make you feel more empowered to be the person that you want to be or help you to take action towards the things that you want to take action on. You can reject any ideas that don't resonate for you. You cannot take any action on stuff that doesn't make you feel excited to be who you really want to be. But the point that I'm making here is that it's never the desire that's the problem. Wanting things has never been the problem, yet we have so much shame, so much guilt, so much resistance around wanting stuff. And it's like, isn't that kind of the reason why we're here, to create things? And if you have a blockage believing that there's something wrong with the fact that you want to create, I think that is a problem. That's a huge innate problem in our belief system, and we need to rewrite that program so that we can start to understand that there's nothing wrong with any lower desire. And so the second thing that I want to share with you in this video that's possibly stopping you from being able to create what you want is believing that you have to be in this state of danger to create what you want. And so let me just show you this chart over here in this corner to illustrate the fact that there's really three zones that we can be in our life. We can be in our safety zone, where sort of nothing is happening. You're just in this safe, comfortable, safe state where there's nothing happening in your life. And then you can get into a little bit of discomfort, which we're going to call the learning zone. And then thirdly, you can also be in your danger zone. And so the danger zone, let me just make it clear that there's not going to be any growth that happens there. Usually you'll swing straight back into your comfort zone and you'll never learn anything. You'll never really grow from that space. The one thing that you'll learn is that you didn't have to go to such lengths, and you didn't have to, it'll teach you what not to do, which is a good lesson. But other than that, there was no real expansion or growth there. It was just a state of stagnation where you learned the consequences of doing certain things and being a certain way. But ultimately speaking, I think that the magical zone, the magic zone where transformation can happen, as funny as it sounds, is going to be in that middle zone, in the learning zone. I think that it's about understanding that what we want to start to do is not be attached to either being comfortable or uncomfortable, but finding sort of this place in the middle, so to speak. And what is this place in the middle? It's what we're going to call the groundless ground, the formless that comes before the form. It's the source that comes before the I am. It's the I before the I am. Before you say you are something, before you declare yourself to be something, before you have a declaration and you decide to be in a certain identity, who and what is the case prior to all of that, so to speak. That would be your, so to speak, true identity. And when you reside in that space, I find that naturally, we can also call this the higher self, from that space of being connected to your higher self, naturally what you'll find is that you're just sort of in this middle zone of learning and expanding and growing, and you're never trying to stay stuck on the same thing because you see that that's stagnation. There's only one path, and it's to move forward and to go in a forward direction, and that's much easier to see when you're in the middle zone. So I want to make it very clear once again that there's absolutely no need for you to be in a consistent state of overly being stressed to create what you want. Being in survival 24/7 is not always going to be conducive to getting to what you want. So try to get yourself out of that survival state. Try your best to calm your brain waves down. That's where you're going to be able to really change your mind in the most powerful way. That's when you're going to be able to take action and align with your mind, that you're shaping your mind to be whatever way you want it to be. And you have to understand that being in a state of overly survival, like being over state of survival and all this negativity, that's not going to help you to be a proactive person, to be a solution-oriented person. It's not going to help your leadership. It's not going to help you to make any faster decisions or be a better person when you're attached to this kind of energy. So ultimately, I think that the best thing that we can do is just make a decision to let it go and understand that there's a place in the middle where you're not necessarily safe and you're not necessarily in your total danger zone, but you find somewhere in the middle where you can expand and grow and increase your skill sets and change your identity to be the person that you actually want to be. And so the final thing that I want to share with you in this video, in terms of what possibly could be making these things happen in your life, is too much focus on structure and not enough focus on how you're actually doing things. And so for me, this was a very powerful insight, because we can get so caught up in what's the best plan, what's the best structure, which path should I go? And ultimately what you can find is that none of it really matters in the bigger picture, because the best thing that you can do is be in a state of consistent action, radical action. You'll find the best structure through consistent action. You'll oftentimes learn way more by just being a radical action taker versus the person that is looking for the perfect plan. That to me was a powerful insight, because you just take consistent action. You don't really think about much more to it, and then naturally you find the structures that work for you. So ultimately speaking, it's about just making a choice, whether it's the right choice, whether it's the wrong choice. Ultimately, in the bigger picture, of course, you can do your best to weigh out the pros and the cons and all these types of things, but you have to become a person that just simply can execute immediately upon stuff that you actually want to do in your life. And even if you feel fearful, even if you feel scared, even if you feel anxious, that's what a leader does, is they go against their own fears and their own concerns, and they see all their objections that their ego is making in terms of why they can't do whatever it is that they want to do, and then instead they still take action. And you could even go as far as to rewrite the program in your mind to always take action when this happens, to use the negativity as a cue, as a sign to take action. Every single time you feel negative, every single time you feel anxious, that's your cue to immediately take action upon what you want to do in your life. And so that is a much more empowering place to live from, because what you'll find is that you still feel anxiety, of course, just like any other person. A leader, a person that you might look up to, it's not that they don't feel anxiety or they don't feel fear. It's that they take action anyway, regardless of the fact. Most people are not willing to do this, and so that's why it's not easy for them to get results in their life, because they're focused too much on what the right plan is, which is the right thing to do. They're in this survival state. They're always in a state of danger, and then they think that there's something wrong with wanting what they want. It's like, how about we slow down? And sometimes the best thing to speed up is to slow down. If you just slow down, then you'll find that naturally you speed up, and you're now focused more on the way that you're doing things, right? It's not just the exact thing that you're doing. Oftentimes people say, if you just do this thing perfectly, A, B to C, you'll get the result. Oftentimes that's not the case. And even if it is the case, there might be a state of resistance while you do it, and you're not really enjoying what you're doing, and that's a problem. How about we find some place in the middle where you can still get the results that you're looking for, and in fact probably produce even more. Most people produce way more when they start to do this, and so they're not in a state of danger, yet they're producing more results, and they feel less busy, but they're getting more done. Why is that the case? Why is it that some people might feel extremely busy, but then they don't like the results that they're producing in their life, and then somebody might feel more calm, more at ease with themselves, but then yet they're producing 5 times, 10 times, maybe 50 times, hundreds of amounts of times of more results and more work done in their life. And when you talk about magnitudes of hundreds of thousands of times more work, now we're talking about something practical. That's not just an airy-fairy idea and just stuff that sounds nice and sounds, exciting, but then yet it leaves you in the same position. It's not about attaching to short-term gratification and needing things instantly. It's about delaying that just a little bit, thinking in the bigger picture, thinking long-term. Then you take action consistently, the right structure naturally comes to you, and you naturally figure out the systems that work for you in your life through action. And that's what ultimately wisdom actually is.